lives up north, picking up Thursday night at Adam Johnson's house. You come see me. If you email, if you sign up as a volunteer and note that you can pick up Thursday night. We would love to pick up all the displays and everything out of the shed at Adam's house. We need 3 to 4 people, and I think we have 2 right now. So if we can get a couple more people, that would be awesome to load that up.
Suggestion
Question
for people that are willing to do this or find dinner.
Sure, we can do that.
Both
Yeah.
nights, Friday and Thursday and Sunday.
Yep. And then Sunday night we need to take them back, and that's where a lot of people disappear. So you help out. Perfect. Thank you very much. I'll see you and get you on a text distribution list. So if anything changes last minute, we can communicate via text or call. It's time to sign up for volunteers, of course, but you also need to submit your trees. August 21st is your deadline to submit your trees. If you have submitted already, and you go to your member site, and if you don't see that your tree's been submitted, you're gonna need to resubmit. There's a glitch in the system. Kevin, you got anything to say about it? Did I get it? Okay. So make sure you got it. Will, we were talking, you should be good, but anybody else that has already submitted their trees, check your member portal. If it's not in there, go ahead and resubmit. We're also looking for presenters. Jim is going to present. He's going to do a quick demo for beginners. He's going to take some nursery stock material. He's going to work it for an hour. He's going to talk to people generally about how we use this thing called Bonsai. So if anybody else wants to present, please see me. We've got a few slots open for that. It could be any level of presentation, so please let me know. Or if you can't find me, if I'm busy, you can't catch me tonight, you can reply to any email and say, I need to volunteer, I'd like to volunteer here, I'd like to do this, I'd like to help out. Those go to Lydia and the board, and they'll be able to get that stuff to me right away. So any email from them, or from the Rocky Mountain Bonsai Society will go to them. Any questions about the show?
Auction items?
Auction items, yes, thank you. Yeah, there's also a place on the website to submit auction items, I believe, or is it
No,
just
just
email?
send them to me.
Okay.
Yeah. If you
Email
have-
Linda, there's an email floating around about there, several that Lydia sent out that say, email Linda Paul for any items you would like to donate to the club to set up. And then Friday night, we're going to talk about dinner a little bit.
Yeah, so Friday night we always have a celebration. It comes after a busy day of setup. This one's going to be a special evening. We're going to have some VIP guests. I think some of the Botanic Gardens folks are going to be there. Harold is going to be there. So 6 to about 7, and then there'll be an auction, and there's usually some really nice items there. So count on that. It won't be dinner, so typically we'll finish setting up 4:35. Be a good time to go get dinner, and then be back at 6 for the Friday night celebration. Good? Did I miss anything?
Good. Cool. Thanks, guys. Again, we don't have a show without volunteers, so please volunteer. Really could use the help. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Ken. So this is the time of year that we are formulating the new board for 2027. The nominating committee is Lydia Young, David McPeters, and Matt Wright, who's not here tonight, but David's going to present their slate of candidates.
Okay, so I've got the slate, and the way this works is by bylaws, we present it to the members at a meeting, which we're doing tonight. And then at the next meeting, or in a month, we hold a vote. And really this year, we're gonna hold a vote by email. So in a month, watch your email, and you can vote. This is not a contentious vote, thankfully. We have a couple of candidates, so I'm just gonna name the position and the candidate. So for president, we have Connie Garrett. Stand up.
Go back
I'm sure everyone knows this guy, there's no backing out now. For vice president, we have Kevin Young in the back. For show chair, we have Ken Mulred. There he is in the back, he's obviously the guy.
Just the assistant this year.
For the membership chair, we have John Wood. John, how do you sit in the back? For the treasurer, we have Anna Trova here. For communications, we have Matt Wright. Matt's not here tonight, otherwise he would be doing this. And for program chair, we have Christine Carfora. So those are the 7 candidates. An email will come out in approximately 30 days, and you will have, we decide how long to vote.
It'll be like 3 days that the vote will be open, and you'll all look at the email, and you won't want to vote. And pretty please do anyway, because we need to meet a minimum quota for our bylaws, and it's really helpful if you just take 3 seconds to click the buttons.
We do have quorum rules, so we need everyone to vote. But it's easy. Questions? Oh, we also accept nominations from the floor tonight. So if anyone here would like to nominate themselves for one of these positions, speak now. Okay. Thank you.
Thanks, David. There are also opportunities to be a board member at large. These are people that do a lot to run the show, and they work on the programming team for education, for workshops, things like that. You can work with the communications director, Matt Wright, social media, and maybe AV sort of thing. So there are opportunities as members at large and talk to board members to get on board with helping the club. Any other announcements? So I'm going to turn it over to Graham to introduce these guys. You've organized this. Thanks.
Yeah. All right. I'm Graham Sankey. I help with the visiting artist stuff. I'm a board member at large. Tonight we have a very special super demo. I think most people know Todd Schleifer from First Branch Bonsai. Many of us study there. Todd is a fantastic artist and friend. And tonight he is joined by Andrew Robson from Portland, Oregon. Andrew specializes in deciduous stuff. Andrew Robson is also a wonderful person and friend as well. So give these guys a warm welcome, round of applause. And,
Hi everyone, thanks so much for having me out. I really appreciate the club bringing me in. A big chunk of Todd and I's business is traveling around and working with clubs like this around the country. Obviously this is his home base, but I really appreciate the opportunity to come here, work with all of you in workshops. I had a great few days of workshops with several of you in here, and I've seen several of you for previous year's workshops. So good to see a bunch of familiar faces, help you out with some trees and have some fun along the way. So I have more branches than Todd does, so I'm going to go first so I can get started. So this is a Korean hornbeam. It's not the Korean hornbeam that you typically see in the Kokofu books or what they use in Japan. This is Carpinus coreana. So it's Korean hornbeam, the same in the common name, but it's a different Latin name. This is Carpinus coreana. The ones that you see in Japan typically are Carpinus turkscanovi. Basically, they function very similar, except this has a very different bark characteristic as it ages over time, but nonetheless, it's a lovely tree. If you got a hornbeam from Telperium Farms, a famous grower out in Oregon, it's probably one of these. And it's a fantastic species for bonsai. I have about 15 of these in my garden, so very familiar working on these. Well, I get started, this is the first time I'm seeing this tree, the first time that a lot of you guys are seeing this tree. And so what I do when I have a piece of material where it's August, I can't really see into here, there's a lot of leaves on these deciduous trees this time of year, I'm going to just get in and start carving my way in and figuring this out. What I'm basically going to do is when we're designing a tree for the first time, I'm going to save branches that have more momentum. So a branch like this I'm going to keep, and I'm probably not going to keep all of it, but I'm going to keep about a hand length of it, something like that. So I'll shorten branches that are thick and juicy and have some momentum down to about this much. This is something that I'll be wiring and shaping and building some primary structure on. I'm going to get rid of all the branches that are like this unless it's the only branch in a certain spot. So if I have two branches growing next to each other, one really small one really big one, I'm going to get out all this small junk so that I can focus on the stuff that has momentum, and that's what we're going to use to build kind of the primary structure of this tree. This plant had several rough cuts. I don't know if Todd did that or or whoever Todd got this from did that. I probably chopped all these in the fields a few times, so I probably even touched this tree before. But anyway, we have thousands of options. I'm just going to narrow it down, mostly based on strength as my kind of criteria for getting it down. So that should open it up for us to get in here, take a look at it, and allow us to make some more important decisions. So while Todd's kind of getting started on the juniper, that's what I'm going to be doing. Any questions on that before I kind of dive in and start cutting? All right, I'll pass it over to Todd then.
All right, so I got this tree from Randy. He collected it, Randy Knight. And so when I purchased it, this branch was alive, these branches were alive, so a lot more was alive. And then over like 2 years, I've had it 3 years, over 2 years, I don't know, these branches just started dying. And so what I was left with is a bunch of interesting deadwood and then this really long kind of straight like extension of the trunk. So when I'm looking at this, like if you come in from here, I don't know, the base is weak, right? We have inverse taper here, so it feels like there's a lot of flaws. And so when I was thinking about like a tree for the demo, it's like, well, this could be a good one to try to figure some of those things out. So I changed the angle. So I think when I was looking at this, we're going to come this way. So then when you're there, and maybe, I'll try to get out of your way, but I think the front's in here somewhere. So then this is a little wider here, so it doesn't feel like as inverse with the taper. And then this is kind of leaning back a little. So I'm going to bring this up here. So that's kind of where I'm at, and my front's going to be right in here somewhere, just off of this corner. So the deadwood's cool. Maybe this gets removed, right? Because this is kind of right in your face. But then we're dealing with this, and this is a really straight portion. So it's like, well, how do you take this and make it interact with this, right? And so part of tonight, we'll see, this could go very badly. I will say that right now. It could. And so if it does, then I will just jump over and help Andrew because he has more branches than I do. But part of what I wanted to do tonight was like just show some techniques that you can use, and then we'll see if I actually like get everything set and wired through. And if I don't get all the fine wiring done, I'll do it at home and I'll photograph it and I'll send it out, right, to Lydia, and we could put it on in the next newsletter or whatever. So what I'm thinking, what I'm going to do, this is my approach. I want to bring this and all of this, so it's kind of like maybe, I don't know if I can get an apex down in here, but ideally that's where I'd like it to be. And this is long, right? But this will move. Moving this trunk here is going to be a challenge. So what I'm planning on doing is I'm going to come in, take out half of this live portion, and then put wire spines in here, and then I'll put dry raffia on the back, tie this all in, and then put wet raffia, and then we're going to bend this with a guy wire like down and over into, that's where the guy wire is going to be here. So we're going to push this down, and then I'll probably raffia all this. I'll do a lot of the structural wiring first, because once we start moving it with this guy wire, trying to put like big gauge wire on this to move it, it's going to be hard. So I'll do a lot of that prep work. But that is kind of my plan to try to, and it's like maybe this comes down in here. It's like, how does it interact here? Does it go in front? Does it come in back? Is this branch even usable? I think if you could build a tree with this out of 2 branches, it's better than just 1. So I'm not sure how this is going to go, but that's going to be my approach. So we'll see how this goes. But if it works, I think it'd be really cool, you know. And I've done this technique before, so part of this is like it'll show you guys that, because you've probably seen some of this done in, in books or on videos, but I don't know if everyone's seen it live. So, all right, so that's where I'm going. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take half of this out, half of this live vein out, and then I have raffia going, I have dry raffia there, and then I'll start putting spines in, and I'll tie that off, and then I'll continue with that, okay? Any questions on that?
What's the logic behind dry raffia and then wet on top?
Okay, so I'm going to put the spines in here, and we'll tie that off. And then, so wet raffia will stretch, dry raffia does not. So what I'm going to do on the back, because I'm going to have wire spines on the front of this, I'm going to put dry raffia on the back and tie that on. And so that'll help, hopefully, keep this system from snapping like that. So I'm going to do dry raffia back here, tie that on, and then I'll raffia the whole thing with wet raffia to get compression. But so I use dry raffia on limbers because trees that like to just snap, like that, Doug firs, like you're bending a branch and they just snap like this, I use dry raffia versus wet raffia. So, any other questions? Okay.
Andrew, did Yes. you bring this tree from Oregon? I did not. It was brought from Oregon to Todd's place via Randy,
Yeah.
maybe?
Yeah, it was from Randy.
So Randy probably went to Telperion Farms and got a bunch of trees afterwards, after they had a big kind of tragic fire. And this probably sat at Randy's. I'm guessing I actually did the big chops on this. So when I just finished my apprenticeship with Michael Hagedorn in 2018, I was working part-time at Telperion Farms, kind of in exchange for trees. So I would go up there mostly in the summertime and just prune deciduous trees all day long. So if you have a tree from Telperion Farms, if it was a deciduous tree, I'd probably cut it back in the field once upon a time, because I touched almost every tree there that was in the ground. And so I probably did the initial cuts of these. This was probably sitting up in the up near one of the greenhouses, and it was probably grabbed by Randy kind of after the fire. So, so yeah, it came from Oregon, not via me, but I probably touched it a little bit in the past. So, yeah. But like I mentioned, I've worked on a lot of these, and Korean hornbeam, there's not a lot of deciduous species that I recommend growing in the ground. But hornbeam is one where the expectation for a hornbeam, I like to think of bonsai as we have different expectations for different species. So if I say juniper, you probably think deadwood and interaction between the live vein and the deadwood. If I say pine, you probably think of bark and nice movement. If I say Japanese maple, you probably think of like this really beautiful elegance in the branching. Hornbeams, kind of what we think of with hornbeams in good hornbeam bonsai is kind of nice power in the trunk. These are strong deciduous trees. Not many deciduous trees have that strength. Another example of one would be like Chinese quince, things that can have a lot of kind of hefty mass that are more kind of powerful forms. Or you can also think like field-grown trident maples that have nice big chunky trunks. It's not an aesthetic that is kind of the standard in deciduous, but it's a fun one to kind of play around with. So if you ever thought of doing some ground growing, a hornbeam's a good kind of tree for that, because that's an aesthetic that chunkiness and gnarliness is an aesthetic that we kind of look for in a Korean hornbeam. If you had a Korean hornbeam that had a nice skinny trunk that had like an elegant structure like a Japanese maple, that kind of feels a little different. One way that I judge trees when I evaluate is almost based on that standard. So it's you can think of it almost like dog shows. If I say golden retriever, you think of a certain coat color, a certain like face shape, a certain temperament, a certain size. And so when we say juniper or hornbeam or Japanese maple or any of these other traditional species that we use for bonsai, we kind of group them into those kind of different characteristics that we kind of expect in those species, and that's a good starting point to evaluate them. So hornbeams are fun because they give us that really strong kind of form in deciduous plants. So because of that, if we have any big wounds on hornbeams, they don't necessarily have to be healed over perfectly. We don't necessarily strive for deadwood on this species, but we are less critical of major wounds, major kind of big defects, because most of the hornbeams that were in Japan were collected trees from Korea. It's also a good point that a lot of trees in the traditional bonsai world are not necessarily native trees in Japan. Hornbeams come from Korea, ginkgos came from China, ume even came from China many years ago. And so a lot of the core examples of bonsai in Japan are actually from other parts of the world. They were just species that tended to either become culturally beautiful or important, or look really kind of good, or work well for bonsai. And speaking of Korean hornbeam, both this one and the one that you'd see in Japan are some of the best plants that I find for bonsai because they behave really well. This isn't likely to get a leaf fungus or pathogen. This kind of, whenever I prune it, it's going to grow from the buds that I prune it back to. This is a species that kind of behaves well as a bonsai and does what we expect it to. It's unlike something like a cottonwood, which might kill off half the branches. Sometimes you can defoliate it and it's fine. Sometimes you do it and the tree dies. This is a species that, if you're looking to expand your deciduous bonsai game, this is one that behaves well. It's got some traditional track record for good reason, and it's a nice kind of aesthetic addition to the more kind of soft, delicate deciduous trees that we tend to play around with. So, all in all, Korean hornbeam, really fun plant for bonsai. They also get great fall color too, so have a lot of fun things going for it. The wood is really hard, so when I was getting a lot of these from Telperion Farms, I burned through. I would go if I was like sawing off big roots or big things on the trunk, I would go through reciprocating saw blades like pretty frequently when I was pruning my like initial batch of 20 or 30 of these. So they'll kill a blade. In fact, another nickname for hornbeam is ironwood. And there's a European hornbeam over in Europe that the Vikings would nickname ironwood, and it would dull their axes. So they knew to like avoid ironwood for making boats or shelters or firewood, because it was one that would just like blunt their steel axes. So really interesting plant. I'm going to keep doing some thinning. Looks like Todd has something fun to share.
All right.
All
right, so I've taken out half of I don't know if you can see from the side, but I've taken out half of this live section. And so what I kept doing while I was doing that is like just feeling and see how it moves easier, right? And so when I'm putting these spines in, so I'm putting the spines in, when I'm rolling this around, you have to be careful because the back of this is live, right? This is live, and I'm wrapping this wire around the back, so you can't just tear this up or else the whole tree is going to be dead. So what I'm doing here is putting this spine in, and then I left this, so when I was running this in, you kind of like have to roll it so you get good contact right there with the dead wood, okay? So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this dry raffia and I'm going to tie this in so it has good contact with the heartwood of this branch. Okay, so now I'm going to take this, I'm going to tie off the back. Just do a knot. Okay, so now I have spines. So you can see I left this one long. This wire is long. The thing is, to move this branch here, 6 will probably move this. 6 gauge copper. 6 will not move this. 4 will move this. But I cannot make this move on this tight a bend and make a spine with 4 on this small of an area. So what I did is I ran 6 for the spine, ran it here, and then what I'm going to do, once I have my dry raffia, my wet raffia, I'm going to take a piece of 4, maybe hook it from here, maybe hook it from here. But I want to go, so looking at you, counterclockwise, here, here, so then when I go across here with 4, I can run 4 out here, and then I can put another piece of wire, and maybe the 6 doesn't become useful anymore here, but maybe I run 6 here, and then I'm going to put the guy wire through here, okay? I don't know if this all makes sense or not, but it's like, I am thinking like 3 or 4 steps down the road so it works out correctly, okay? So we got the wire spines. Next I'm going to do dry raffia back here, okay? And so I'm just taking this dry raffia, and then I'll tie it on with this. Okay, so I'm just going to fold it. I'm going to run dry raffia right here because this is the thing too. With a branch this big, if we had raffia, maybe that section's this long, right? That bend would be a lot easier, but that section is this long. So all the force is going to be on here, which makes this, yeah, a bigger, more of a challenge, right? So I'm going to put this back here, maybe even grab just a little more dry raffia.
Is there a function to the initial raffia that you put around that's like not fully around it, but just something you have on there right now?
This?
Yeah.
Yeah, so this raffia here is holding this wire in place. That's all it's doing. So what I'm going to do with the dry raffia, I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to put dry raffia so it lines up back here, and then I'm going to tie it on with like 1 or 2 pieces of raffia. And its only function is to hold that in place, okay?
Not that this plant is any stranger to scarring, but is the reason for such care that you're giving to the spines and to the raffia, is that to minimize some of the, obviously you're trying to prevent breakage, but are you going to hide that scarring on the other side eventually, you think, or?
So what will happen is this will start to like callus over, and it'll start rolling. Whether it ever gets like completely like engulfed and cover that up, probably not. But this will start callousing over. But also if I bring this down some, we'll have like dead wood on the bottom, you know, so, but I don't know if that answers your question or not. All right, so I'm going to tie this on. If you need to talk, Andrew, Will, if I can use you. Hold this right here. Here, so come over here. Here, I'll do it from the back so you can see. So when I learned how to do this, I was at I was at Mirai studying with Ryan, and he has this tree that's called the Naka. It's a California juniper. I don't know if you guys are familiar with that tree or not, but it's like it's a very well-known tree. But we were there, and it was like after. Let me start over here. It was after like the regular day. He's like, here, let's work on this tree. So the tree was like, I don't know, from the, maybe this tall from the, like the top of the container. And so the whole top was like dead and he wanted to compress it. So he took all the dead wood out and then he showed me how to do this. And so then like I just went home and I didn't even try it the first time on a juniper. I tried it on a limber that was all dead. And I just took like the whole dead part out, put in spines, and then bent it. And so, like part of it, you can see this, but you have to just try it, you know, to try to make, to just figure it out, and then you learn from that. So that's. Nope.
Got a stopping point on.
It's all you. All right.
All right, so while they're applying that, I got our tree opened up. I didn't cut off anything important. I just cut off all the extra junk that this tree had post whenever this was pruned last time. So I cut off mostly just small stuff, or if I did cut off something big, it was something big next to something another something big that I didn't necessarily need. It was redundant or just excess. So now we can kind of see into this hornbeam a little bit more. And before I go through and wrap wire on every single branch, I'm going to start looking, okay, where is my actual tree? Where is my trunk line? Is there any part of this trunk that I don't like that I can eliminate? And so I've been looking at this, let you guys kind of take a peek. Is there anything that you don't like on here? Anything that you feel like is redundant, could come off? Any big, thick pieces that aren't necessarily important? What do you think? Anyone seeing anything? We probably have too much. There is a style of tree. So what's going on here is the trunk is coming up, and right about 8 inches up the trunk, it fractures into 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 different lines. And there is a style of tree that does that. It's an oak kind of tree. Basically comes up, fractures into a lot of trunk lines. But it does so with a little bit more cohesion between the trunks. This doesn't necessarily have that. And it's a hornbeam, so we might make it look a little bit more hornbeam-like than oak-like. There's plenty of nice collected oaks that you can find if you want to do more of an oak style. But to get this more into hornbeam style, where we have more of a singular trunk line, or if we have a multi-trunk, it's only going to be 1 or 2 splits in the trunk. I do think we need to eliminate something from here. So anyone see anything that isn't necessarily jiving with the tree? What do you see, Will?
What your left hand is touching right there.
Over here?
Too long.
This one's a little long.
Three main branches pull cluster up.
The 3 main branches, like right in here. That's a little claustrophobic. I've been looking at this one because it's perhaps the biggest, thickest, most boring one. The case that I can make for this one and this one here are these have a little bit of movement. It's not a lot, but it's a little bit of movement, and maybe it's enough for us to work with, versus this is just the thickest, straightest, most boring one that's on here. So that was one that on my initial kind of peek at this that I was thinking might be removed. Another good potential reason to remove it is I'm pretty sure it's dead all the way down here. You can see how the bark is starting to come off, and so if it was going to stay, we'd have a huge kind of shari on this, which I mentioned kind of wounds that haven't quite closed isn't necessarily a problem, but big shari is more of a juniper thing than a hornbeam thing. So because it's so straight and thick and boring, I think this might be a good candidate for total removal, which means just taking a saw and cutting it off. Now, if we did that hypothetically, I wonder if in my brain, I'm wondering, is there still too much going on over on this side? This is still a little dense and heavy and jarring. And maybe we might eliminate one of those other ones, but I think I'm going to start by just taking this off. Again, mostly because it's dead down the trunk. It's our thickest, straightest, most boring one. Unless anyone has a very, very compelling case, and I'm always open to arguments if you can present a good case, I think we're going to eliminate this. But any objections?
Is there any basal flare of the roots that would affect your decision?
Haven't even looked yet, and it's not necessarily too important for my major branch selection right now. That'll be more important when I'm going in to zero in on a front. But as far as just removing this, it's bothering me from many sides of the tree, so it's not necessarily in relation to the trunk. I think it's just an overall structural problem. So, but yeah, we'll definitely kind of take a look at that today. What I do know from these hornbeams are it could be we have kind of roots right here at the surface, or I've repotted several of these and the roots are halfway down. And so we probably don't have the opportunity to really pinpoint that today, being out of season for repotting. But yeah, not necessarily important for removing that right now. Any other questions or objections with me taking this off?
Is there a limit to the work that you'll do this time of year?
Not really. So I should have started by saying Todd did everything right setting this up for this work. This was really healthy. It had great vigor everywhere. I don't see any damaged leaves on this tree. It had nice long extensions. This is exactly what I want to see before I do any type of major work, is a lot of vigor in this plant. So the more vigor this has, the less concerned I am. Also, time of year, my trip out here was kind of intentional, coming out here early August. This is a last good time in the growing season to do major work. So I wouldn't wait too much longer into the month here, but right around now, if you had a plant that's healthy and vigorous like this is a great time to come in and do one set of major pruning, major heavy work, because any response that we get that grows in the next few weeks will have enough time to lignify, set buds, and harden off before the cold weather comes in the fall or winter. So good kind of last time to do any kind of major pruning on your deciduous trees. Or if you have tropicals, we were doing a lot of tropicals in my workshops the last few days. Great time of year since it's so hot to go through and do some tropical work. All right. Any other objections before I cut this big piece off? Yeah?
Are you going to want to remove any of those limbs that are kind of coming out of the same point?
Like these here?
The three that are kind of not there are in the same position.
Maybe.
Any of those with the taper or swelling or anything?
Not necessarily swelling. If this hasn't swollen too much by now, chances are with small growth, it's not really going to do it too much in a bonsai pot. And then the other thing is, we can create, it's very easy to create an overly simplified tree, so it's better to have a tree with a few issues if it adds some complexity than take a tree and cut off every single problem and then we're kind of left with nothing. So for now, I think what we're going to do is we're going to take this one off, then we're going to reassess, see how these three look, imagine what it might be like to take off one of these, and then check in again. So until then, I'm going to get this off, see how this feels, and then we'll check back in together. All right? And then we'll pass it over to Todd to hear how he's doing.
All right, so now I'm just applying raffia. So when I'm doing this on here, so I'm going to run raffia probably out into here. Even though that probably moves, we're just going to play it safe. So when I'm doing that, I'm not applying, here, we'll do it from the side. So when I get right here to this point, that's when I'm pulling the raffia. So up to that point, I'm not really, like right here, I'm gonna pull really hard. And then here, I'm not pulling. So you don't have to pull like raffia the whole time. It's not super loose, but it's not, I don't have to put pressure on it all the time. So yeah, so I'm just going to finish this. I'm going to come up to here, up to this area. I'm going to clean this off, and then I'm going to run 4 out to here, 4 out to here, probably put 6 on this, and then we'll do a guy wire, and then we're going to find out how this goes. So But this, like, same thing, I thought about like this time of year, and junipers at this time of year do really well with heat, and they like heat, and that's when they really start to grow. So I figured too, if we're gonna do it, I probably will not put this out in like full sun, but I have my structure at the garden, and so I'll put it somewhere where it gets a lot of good sun, good morning sun, good during the day, and then probably the late afternoon sun it won't get anything, I don't know, maybe after, I don't know, 3 or 4 maybe, but this is gonna get this will get a good deal of sun, so. So here I'm just transitioning because I'm gonna run out of raffia, so I'm splicing in another piece.
And why are you running up that branch versus the other one?
The,
Give up that one versus the one that's closest to you?
say that, I'm sorry, what?
Just trying to understand why you're running around to up that branch.
Uh-huh.
Thank you.
Versus this one? Because I think I can bend this pretty easily without raffia. And this is like the whole tree, pretty much. If we lose this, fine, but I think we can move this. But if we lose this, we're done, right? So I'm just being very cautious.
Seems to be living up to its Ironwood nickname.
I'm getting Todd a silky saw for his stocking stuffer this year. Do you have a silky saw?
No. But I have other saws. I thought that might be the best one. That also probably dug around in dirt and.
All the fun collecting stuff.
Is that better?
That work.
Sorry.
Are there any considerations to the way that you're cutting it off? Just cut a flat line?
Mostly getting the bulk of the mass off, and then I don't think we have one here, but I would then take a giant knob cutter and then just get the rest of it off. So this is just getting the bulk, and then we use another tool to kind of do the detail, kind of finish it up.
And that finishing, is that to give it like pleasant aspect of the scar?
Yeah, so we're cutting off something smaller to something bigger, and whenever we do that, we can generally, if it's during the growing season, we can cut that flush. If I was cutting something small down to something, if I was cutting something big down to something small, let's say I was going to take this whole thing off and cut this off to a side branch that's here, I would need to leave a pretty healthy stub to protect this small branch. So when you're cutting something big down to something small, you have to leave a stub to protect that small thing you're cutting back to. But if I'm cutting something smaller down to something bigger, then you can cut flush. So kind of general rule of pruning. Looks like we're just about there. Yeah, if we cut something big down to something small and we leave a stub, that stub is always cut perpendicular, so you never want to cut it at an angle. Always make a perpendicular cut, and then that cut then is cleaned up to be flush after the small thing is growing about half the thickness of the big thing that you cut back off. So let it get about half its size, then it will naturally collar really well, and then we can go back in and clean it up really nice and flush. All right, so we got that off. What do you think? Core structure now. Anything else that's kind of bothering us on here?
Two lowest branches are kind of
These two thick ones down here? Let's say we were going to hypothetically get rid of one. Which one is less offensive? Or maybe which one is more useful? Yeah, this one is very useful. I don't have it, because I took this off, I don't have anything over on this side yet. So this is also very useful. It's also opposite to the other main parts of the tree, so it's giving us good branch distribution and balance. So I think we're good to cut this one off as well. So let's do that real quick. The small ones go a little faster. All right. I think in light of that, this small thing down low is not really useful to us as well. I'm trying to get to a similar amount of branches for us to wire after the break.
You're still going to beat me.
So looking at this, I think our leader is very obviously going up to here. I think we're actually starting to get some nice line built into this tree. We still have this question mark of, can we keep 1, 2, 3 over here? And the one that we definitely, I think, probably don't want to get rid of is this upper one. Then we just have 2 weird things going off to the side that are kind of close. So the question is, do I remove this or do I remove this? Or have we gone too far, we don't remove any? What do you think? Who has a decisive thought that they can argue?
The middle one.
The middle one? Why the middle one?
It's a weird angle, but it kind of curves back in towards the tree.
Uh-huh. It is kind of laying on this part of the plant a little bit.
The smaller ones and the main one, that middle one.
Yeah.
So the upper right there at the fork.
Mm-hmm.
Showing almost the direction to the upper.
Yeah. Probably it's going to be, who asked that? All right. It's probably going to be facing you, somewhere in that range, or 180 degrees facing you again, somewhere in that range. It's probably going to be where we have a nice base, good distribution of the primary lines, and that gives us kind of a rough starting point. One thing that's interesting with deciduous material versus coniferous material is the bones of this. Todd's making a big alter to the lifeline there, but you know, when Randy collected this part of the tree is not really ever going to change. We might remove dead wood or whatnot, but the bones of that tree are relatively set. And the interesting thing when we study traditional bones, I have this book at home that it's like 100 years of the Kokofu show, or I think it's 70 years, came out in the 70th anniversary. And you can look at junipers that were in show number 10, show number 30, show number 50, all the same tree, and the bones of the tree don't change at all. It's like the same juniper trunk with like different arrangement of the branches around it. But like the trunk never got bigger, the dead wood was well preserved, never really changed. That same book, when you look at deciduous trees, the trees are almost unrecognizable 20 years later, kind of throughout the progression of a lot of those plants. So I bring all that up because the bones of this tree can have a much bigger potential to change over time versus that trunk is relatively, 50 years from now, that trunk is still going to look the same. The branching might be very different and whatnot, but it's very hard to change the core structure that was collected on a tree like that. You can decorate the branches in lots of different ways all around that trunk, but that trunk is relatively going to stay the same, especially on a juniper. Pines can age, they get better bark over time, and get a little bit thicker, but they don't really necessarily look too different. But deciduous trees will change a lot. I have a Japanese maple in my garden. I got the tree in 2010. Its nabari was this big. Now in 2026, the nabari is this big. And so it's a very, very different tree. The trunk has doubled in thickness. It's about a 100-year-old tree, but the trunk has gotten twice as thick in the last 15 or so years that I've had it. So all that is to say, this is changing a lot more in time versus the wood on that tree. This wood is a lot more fluid. So when I'm going to think about fronts, we're going to set this up on a really good path today, but my front is going to be a little bit more fluid and less clear than on something like that, where the wood on that tree is not necessarily going to change. Yeah? Say that one more time? Here. Mm-hmm. Yeah. After all this pruning that we're doing, this tree's going to pop all over like it did before. There's an internode here, 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 here. So I'm going to get buds popping probably out of all those spots, especially because we've cut some big things off and opened this up a lot more to the light. So, yeah.
Maybe I'm wrong, but there are two branches that look almost on the same plane, equal density.
These two?
Yeah, and parallel.
Those are the ones that we were kind of looking at is if we can imagine a scenario where one of those doesn't exist, which is the better scenario, taking the one in the middle off or the one that's lower. And there's a case for both. The case for taking the middle off is that we get more separation between these two, and that kind of opens things up a little bit more nicely. But the case for taking the lower one off is the upper one actually has some movement. It comes up, and then we have a nice little bit of movement here. This is just straight. The other case for taking off the bottom one and leaving the top one is we have a more acute angle. So our angle is a little bit better, and our movement is a little bit better on this one. So it's not an easy choice. It's not an obvious. That's why we haven't cut it off yet. We're still talking about it.
Is there an aesthetic that would be more in alignment with the hawthorn for that choice?
Yeah, not necessarily. Both are gonna, for a hornbeam, both are gonna give us some nice kind of chunkiness to the tree. Yeah, it's not an easy answer. This is. I feel strongly both ways. So, so now we're trying to decide which has like a 5% advantage. Another thing that I don't necessarily care for if we remove this one is if I leave this, the lower one, I kind of have just like this straight line between this one and this one that's left behind. So it gives me a little bit of a, removing this one gives me a little bit of height variation to play with. So that's where I'm at. I'm thinking we might remove this one a little bit more and see if we can make these two work. This is enough distance and space that I think we're going to be able to, but because this one has movement, because our angle is more acute, what we'll probably do is get rid of these ones growing in between to get the congestion out of there, but get rid of this low one. Again, I think also just that straight line, it's kind of like a diagonal bar branch between these two that is not that appealing. So because of that, because this one has movement and this one doesn't, because the angle is a little bit more acute, I think this one's 5 or 10% more likely to come off. Does that rationale make sense? You could probably make a tree doing the other way, but that slight edge means I'm going to take this one off instead. Any objections? Now's your chance. Okay. Okay. We're almost ready to start wiring this guy.
So removing that bottom, you guys have a little pine branch there as a future option. The one that you just got off.
Oh, the one that we just cut off.
A little replacement there.
This here. Yeah, this I think we'll be able to, if let's say this is hypothetically our front, this could be a nice little back branch. So we'll keep this, we'll play with it in the meantime. Another thing that's maybe a little different with deciduous is because these are more long form design, I'm not necessarily in a rush to cut off every problem branch today. I might wire things and try and use things that I cut off next time this gets worked on or the time after that for the sake of just kind of leaving that density and trying to make that work. So like I said, front is a little bit more fluid at this stage of development, and kind of a branch like this, a little bit more fluid. Maybe we don't end up using it, but it's going to take me 30 seconds to get a wire on it and bend it, so I'm okay wasting that 30 seconds of my life for the potential of this being a good branch down the road. So I think that's most of our pruning for this one. I'm going to then go through and start getting some wire on this. Any questions before I pass it over to Todd and we do some wire? Yeah.
So we got a lot of big booms and stuff to fill in. Are you seeing that this trunk expands a couple inches outward and really heals all those in? Or we need to do some carving and just kind of take care of it? What do you thought?
Yeah. These wounds are totally healable and within a 3 to 5 year span. If you have good technique for starting the wound, the tree's healthy, and if you apply the right cut paste that has some growth hormone in it. This wound would be more of a 5 to 7 year healing, definitely possible with a strong tree. What's more likely is we carve it out, we try and get it healed most of the way over. It's probably just a slow heal to get there, but in the grand scheme of things, by the time this tree is ready to submit it to a Pacific Bonsai Expo or US National Show, this will have been healed over anyway. So it might be a temporary kind of carving type thing, but it's most likely we can heal it in the time that it would take to make this tree kind of a show tree. So as far as timing for a show tree, we would, yeah. About every year, every other year, we would come in, oftentimes with a big wound. A callus will grow about 20, 30% of the way, and then it just stalls and stops. And then what we do is we take a metal pick, we right on the perimeter where that callus tissue meets the dead wood on the inside, we rub just a millimeter or two all the way around the perimeter of where that callus stopped. We try and get down to the cambium, so just see a millimeter of green all the way around. You put on fresh cut paste over the entire wound. That's a pet peeve of mine, when people only put cut paste on the perimeter, on the outer edges. It's one of the least intelligent things we can do, because oftentimes the cut paste we're using has growth hormone in it. And so if you want your callus just to stop, only put a little bit of cut paste on. If the cut paste serves two purposes. One is if you're using a good one, you're going to have that growth hormone in to accelerate the callus. And two, we don't want water to get in here. Now, it's maybe not a Denver issue, but a Portland issue might be water gets in here, rots down a big hollow in my trunk, and now I have a bunch of other problems. And so if I have anything kind of exposed to moisture, just like your house, you don't want to just rip off a piece of siding and have like bare kind of wood on the side of your house. We want to totally block moisture from getting in there, and that's one of the benefits of cut paste is it deflects water, gets it out, so we don't have the wood kind of rotting down the center of the trunk. I have repaired probably 3 dozen or 4 dozen trees that have hollows from wounds that have not been properly healed, and so I put a lot of cement in the core of a lot of trees to try and fix some of those mistakes. So if you're ever sawing in half a rakuyo tree and you come across a big kind of piece of cement halfway through, that's probably what happened. But common thing in Japan, when wounds aren't healed properly, it creates a big kind of soft cavity that has to be kind of filled and healed over. All that being said, cut paste would go over the entire thing. As that callus kind of stalls after a year or two, we would go and re-agitate that wound, put on fresh cut paste, and a cycle or two of that, and that would heal it over. So I'm going to pass it back over to Todd. We might have a break fairly soon.
Maybe when Todd's done.
Sounds good.
All right, so this is all set up. Will's going to...
Question for you, Todd. You haven't, maybe I've missed it, you haven't really shaped it much, right? You're just prepping it?
Yeah, all this is, it's like the engineering to move a branch. That's all I've done this whole time. So, and now we'll find out. So here, what I did, so I want this branch to come, I want to get a decent angle here. So what I did is instead of like anchoring here to where my branch comes this way, I'm actually running it underneath this deadwood. So I get a little steeper drop. And then I'm coming around, well, you guys can't see, coming around the deadwood, and then it's tied onto there. So when I'm bending this, Will's going to have to be super careful to keep this here, right, on this knob, so it doesn't come off, all right? Will's got it. Will's got it. Will's got it. No. I want you here, or however. So here, so Will's going to just take the slack out. I'm just going to start bending, and then we'll stop for a second, and we'll let it maybe relax and reassess, and then we'll go again, okay? So.
And a re-grip.
Yep. Keep it on, yep, okay. Okay, okay. All right, so far so good.
Everyone can breathe.
Yeah, so I was giving Will slack here, and he's just twisting it to take the slack out, okay? So that bent. That's not bad. But, here, let's get a little greedy. This is, okay, so you get a little greedy, and then bad stuff can happen. But the thing is, I don't want it here. So it's like if we get this to where it's horizontal, then we either have to go down or we have to stay up. But, well, that's going to move. So when I'm talking this section here. Let's go a little more.
Let me put a hockey stick on it for a second. Okay.
Ready? We're just going to go a little, not too much.
Ready.
Okay.
Come on.
Okay. Thanks, we're good.
All right.
Yeah, so that's pretty good. At least now, like this is starting to interact with the deadwood. So this here, I'm not sure where this is going to end up at the moment. So I'm actually going to probably tilt this up a little, and then I'm going to put movement in this branch, and we'll get that line set, and then I'll deal with this. So I don't know if you want to do a break or.
Yeah, let's do 10 minutes, and there's still a chance to put raffle tickets in, and then we'll come back.
So here we are at the moment. So yeah, so there were questions. So when I was bending this, so before I get there, let's see, our front's kind of in here somewhere. As I was moving, I kept like, one thought I had, it's like, do you take this and push it down? But I don't know, the line wasn't good. It's like, maybe we need an apex up here, so I brought it up. So I brought this up, but then maybe some of this gets shortened, but we have like some nice foliage in here. But while I was bending it, this cracked here. So I just put cut paste and then parafilm around it just to protect it. But like the whole outside of that bend broke, but the inside's still intact. So I'm not that worried about it. Whereas like the same thing here, this is all alive on the back, the whole inside is gone, right? So the same thing with this, with branches like that. I don't know, I'm not too worried about it because the whole inside's still intact. So what I'm gonna start to do now, so I'm not gonna finish wiring this tonight, but I'm gonna start. And so I'll start maybe laying out some of these secondary pieces, and then I'll do like fine wiring at another time or this week sometime, and then I'll finish it. But yeah, so one thing I did too, so if we're in here and our front's in here somewhere, this probably needs to get shortened because this feels pretty long. And then I took a guy wire actually here. Actually, okay, so we brought this down even more than it was before the break because I wanted to just get this a little lower and then be able to bring this up to where the apex here is not above this. So we brought it down and in even more. But then when you were looking from the front, then this branch here was really blocking that view. So I put a guy wire here to here, and I actually pulled this back. Okay, so this branch I pulled back a little more. So yeah, so that's where I'm at now. I'm going to start laying some of this out. Yeah, but I don't know. I feel pretty good about this. The thing that scared me was how long, like it's, what is that, 5 inches, 4 inches, 3.5 inches, whatever it is. It wasn't a very long bend, and it's a lot of pressure on there, so that's what kind of made me nervous. But yeah, it's just, there's all these, like with pines, you can do, it's the same thing. Like if you want to bring a branch here, down and in, we just did it with Graham's tree, had this huge branch out here, and so we did a wedge cut, right? So you're taking out the part that's compressing, you take the compression out, and then all of a sudden the branch bends easier because there's nothing there to stop the compression. So it's all just, I'm not an engineer by any point, but that's all this is. It's just kind of engineering where's going to be the most resistance, and then trying to think ahead to, like, if I do this, this could happen, so how do I stay a step ahead of that and make sure that if it does, I'm already prepared. So, all right, that's all I got.
All right, so while Todd's working on getting some wires started, I've gotten a little bit of a head start with some wiring over here. Typically what I'm doing is getting most of these primary branches wired. Other than the piece of wire that I'm putting on right now for something very small, I'm going to use aluminum wire, and a good gauge or rule of thumb is make your aluminum wire about the same size as the branch. Now, when we're doing, both Todd and I are creating a bonsai kind of for the first time, so when you're doing initial stylings, if you're going to err on the side of slightly larger or slightly smaller, always err on the side of slightly larger wire, so that the bends that you're putting in are actually meaningful and functional. So if you're at like a crossroad of do I use a 2 or 2.5 or a 16 or a 14, always kind of veer on the side of slightly bigger. You won't be upset about that once you're going to actually make your bend. So I'm using aluminum wire about the same size as the branch, and we're just going to kind of start getting some initial movement and shape kind of built into these. Someone was asked, there were several questions throughout tonight, where's our front, is this going to stay this tall? And again, what I'm trying to do now is just kind of get good information built into this tree so I can answer some of those decisions with more clarity down the road. So I'm trying to take branches that are boring, get some nice movement, some shape into them, get things relatively working outwards towards a silhouette. I'm still going to have a good idea where my front is by the time we end this. I'm still going to have, do my best to create a nice design. But as long as I'm getting nice movement and shape into these, I'm making this a heck of a lot better than kind of what we started with. And again, with deciduous trees, the development is a little bit more fluid over time. We'll have a rough idea of where this looks good, but it could be down the road we decide that this feels too tall and this might be chopped. I was working with Gordon in a workshop today who had a Korean hornbeam, and we kind of took a tree that was designed to be a taller tree and cut it down lower, because after a few years of development, that's the decision that made the most sense. So while we're kind of leaving it here today, and we'll make it look as good as we can here today, there's a future where maybe this does come down more. Maybe this branch gets shortened off. Maybe there's a few other things. Maybe we're going to wire this and don't actually need it after all. So I'm trying to be open-minded with deciduous trees, a little bit more open-minded than how I was taught to kind of work on conifers, like what Todd's working on over there. Not that that's not fluid also. I'm sure big things are going to be cut off of that as well. But when you're building a tree, as you get new growth, as this branch starts to become as big as some of these other ones, that might give us some information to make more clarity to make some bigger decisions a little bit down the road.
Paste on those branches that you cut off?
Did we what?
Did you put some paste on there?
Haven't put any paste on them. It's just kind of sawdust and the natural color. So, yeah, haven't done anything to those. What Todd's homework or his apprentice's homework is going to be is to take a knob cutter, cut these down nice and flush. What you want to do with a callus like this is, if we plan on healing this over, which I think we do, you want to create a small concavity. Because callus is always going to add mass. If we're going to add several millimeters of mass, almost even like half a centimeter, a centimeter of callus tissue, if I just leave this as a bump, that's just going to make an even bigger bump as the callus grows over this. So we have to make a concavity in order for it to heal over flat. And how big of a concavity might be determined by how vigorous of a tree. If it's a trident maple, we make a pretty healthy concavity because that has a big, thick callus. If it's a hornbeam, they tend not to have a huge callus, so just a nice, subtle concavity would be nice. So Todd or his apprentice will come in with a big knob cutter and just kind of whittle this away for 20 minutes or so, try and just dig out a nice little concavity in this section. With a knob cutter and doing this type of work, making lots of small cuts rather than a few big cuts is kind of the way to go. So I would probably make 100 small cuts with that tool, just kind of chipping this away rather than making like 10 big ones to try and get it cleaned up.
How soon does that need to be done on that cut specifically?
Sometime this week would be good. Get it done this week. And
Tomorrow.
Tomorrow.
He'll do it tomorrow.
Yeah. Yeah, I wouldn't wait till like a week or two from now. I'd get it done and get it cut, paste, and healed over. Or get it in the process of healing over, because we only have so many weeks of growing season left for me to get that callus kind of started in its development. So.
Do you have a rule of thumb when you use like a putty cut paste versus the more liquid?
Good question. Putty cut paste versus liquid cut paste. I care more about the type of cut paste and what's inside of it than the actual form. My favorite cut paste is called Kirikuchi Naru. It's an olive green bottle. I get it from Jonas at Bonsai Tonight. There's a link to that on my website that will take you to his website where you can buy it if you're curious about some of the products that I use. But that one, I inherited probably 70 or 80 of these Telperion trees, so I have a lot of experience healing a lot of big wounds. And when I was starting out, I used all the different cut pastes. I used the orange stuff, the stuff in the yellow bottle, I used all of them, and anything that you could get. And there were two that actually performed very, very well, like far above the rest, and that was the Kirikuchi Naru, that olive green one that I mentioned, and then the Hilo, which is kind of like a purple type liquid one. Both of those work very, very well. The Kirikuchi performed a little bit better, so that's the one that I tend to use. And they have both a putty version and a liquid version of that. Oftentimes with a really big cut like this, I will use the liquid version. Once Todd's apprentice goes through and cleans that out, I'll paint on a layer of that liquid, and then I use the putty after that's dried to just kind of put it on top. One of the benefits of the putty, especially on a really large wound, is it creates kind of a little microclimate, so to speak, for that wound. It keeps it nice and humid under there, and really kind of creates an environment for that callus tissue to grow and develop nicely. So that can be a benefit. The putty, I think, is better for bigger cuts. The liquid, for something this size, liquid's totally fine, or even the size of your finger or smaller. Yeah.
Is that bottle there?
Yeah, actually, thank you. This is Kirikuchi Naru. So yeah, one of the best ones. This was designed by a bonsai hobbyist in Japan, a student of Daisaku Nomoto, a famous bonsai professional there, known for shohin. He lives down in Miyazaki. One of his students designed this because he wasn't happy with how his cuts were healing. So he doubled the amount of growth hormone that they put in these. So I think the hormone is probably gibberellic acid, but yeah, nice kind of, it gives you a really good head start. There's a lot of plants that people say you can never heal wounds on. Ginkgo is one, quince is another. I've healed wounds this big on a ginkgo with this gut paste in just a handful of years. So one of the best gut pastes I think you can buy. Yeah?
Do you use that regardless of the species, or do you
I do. I'll use it on every single plant I work on. Do you use this? It's sitting on the table, so I'm guessing it's yours.
That's mine. I use it on everything.
Okay.
How small of a cut do you need to use that on?
How small of a cut? Typically, if I can see it really easily with my naked eye, then I'll use it. I'm probably not going to use it on a cut like this, but on some of these bigger cuts where you could kind of see it from 8 feet away, I would paint it on those. Again, there's two benefits to cut paste. Number one, it's going to block all the bad things from getting in. It's a nice Band-Aid or a shield. So any fungal pathogens or bacteria or anything that's around, this is going to help keep it out. And number two, it's got hormone in it, so it's going to help accelerate the growth and heal it over. So basically anything sizable, anything kind of bigger than I don't have a good analogy. Anything easy to see. So, all right. So I'm going to go through and just start getting some wire on. Now, I cut these to only a certain length, about a hand length, on all the things that I'm going to wire. Just because I'm wiring that much length doesn't mean I'm actually going to preserve it. And what I found when I did a lot of these Telperion trees initially was I'm going to put as much nice movement as I can into something like this, knowing that one day I might cut this back and only keep half of it, but wherever I decide to cut this back down the road, I'm going to have good movement kind of built in. The reason that we only save a little bit rather than keeping much more length and wiring much more length is that this doesn't have taper. From here to here, where this branch is coming from to where I'm holding it at the end, there is no taper on this branch whatsoever. And 10 years of growth is not really going to change that. And so eventually I'm going to want to cut this back to introduce some taper. In the meantime, we're going to get some nice movement in to place its location and give me a good opportunity to wherever I do cut this back in the future, it has movement up until that point. So this is kind of not necessarily sustainable for the long term, but it's going to look really good in the next 5 to 7 years. So I know, just kind of looking down the crystal ball of what we're going to do in the future, if this tree's in front of me 5 years down the road, I'm going to have nice movement built into this thing, but I might cut half of it off down the road, and that's okay. That's just doing bonsai. I'm okay with that.
When did you start thinking about potential sacrifice branches on this guy?
Yeah, if we want the trunk to get substantially bigger, that's when we would start thinking about sacrifice branches or smoothing out taper. So this is kind of a harsh transition of taper from here to here. That's not blended enough for my liking. So I would probably let something up here run to kind of blend this taper a little bit more and also help heal this wound, which hasn't been healed well in the past. So for both those reasons, I get a sacrifice branch kind of started to help with that. It also, having a big sacrifice on top here will also dramatically help the closing of these wounds down below. So it solves a lot of issues. One of the other best reasons of having a sacrifice branch is if you have a tree that's giving you issues with big internodes, a lot of people have this with maples, where you have like 2 or 3 inch internodes on your maples. Just having a sacrifice branch, having all that energy going into that sacrifice branch can create really small internodes because all the energy is kind of focus up in that sacrifice branch, not in the lower parts of the tree where you're getting those big internodes. So one of the best tools just to slow a tree down is to have that sacrifice branch. Plus, you're getting a bigger nabari, a bigger trunk line, bigger kind of, you're enhancing the bones of the tree all along the way. So lots of good things come from it.
Wiring this in the growing season, how long are you going to keep that wire on? About? Rewire it for the winter?
Yeah, for this wire, it will stay on for about 4 to 8 weeks, something like that. If you're less experienced with wiring, maybe 2 to 4 weeks, because people who tend to be less experienced tend to crank the wire on the branch a little bit more tightly. So somewhere between 4 weeks on average is a good kind of
How
time
many?
frame. 4 weeks.
All right. I'm putting it in my calendar.
So it's good if we take it off and rewire it again, but just not in the same grooves?
Hopefully we take it off and the branches look fine and we don't necessarily have to rewire it. So that's not always the case, but you're probably not rewiring this year. Probably not until next year, and you're probably wiring the response more than the stuff that we're wiring right now. Good questions. Wire scars are unacceptable on deciduous trees because the ideal time to appreciate these trees is in wintertime when all the leaves drop off. I know that's a tough time here because all the trees are tucked away trying to survive your brutal winter. But that's our ideal time to do appreciate bonsai. That's why all the major shows in Japan, they start with fall color and they go until kind of spring leaf out. It's kind of opposite of our American bonsai shows. All their shows are kind of in the dead of winter, especially their main most important ones.
Is there a rule of thumb on how long a wire's got to stay on? Is it 4 weeks or 6 weeks?
Whenever it starts biting in, not necessarily a rule of thumb. This is a vigorous tree, so it's going to bite in faster than like a 50-year-old bonsai that's been in training for a long time. But not a general rule of thumb. And if you're already seeing bite in, you're too late. So you have to take it off before you see any bite in. Now there's some species, this tree is actually a little bit more, this specific hornbeam is a little bit more forgiving with tight wire than like a Japanese maple or a beech might be. You pretty much destroy a branch if you get bite in on those species. So this plant's a little bit more forgiving on the wire, but yeah, we still want to make sure we get it off in time. Other questions?
Andrew, what's the strategy for dealing with the right cuts on the trunk? You know, these major cuts that you make. Like I know when there's one, you're doing the callus approach, but I'm talking about like cleaner.
Yeah.
I'm always nervous about making clean cuts like that.
Yeah, because this is bigger down here than what we cut off, it's safe. And because we're doing it in the growing season, I'm not doing this in the dead of winter. So because of the timing and because of the scenario of this being smaller than where we cut back to, both of those mean we're safe. As far as like what the next couple years look like on healing that, so Todd's apprentice tomorrow is going to create a nice concavity on here. Up here? So the strategy for up here, this was a cut that was made a while ago. This needs to be kind of reworked. So Todd's apprentice can put this on his to-do list tomorrow as well. This needs to be chased down to where you can see some green all the way around. We need to find the living tissue. And also because these have a little bit of thickness to them now, that ridge can be cut off. So this wound needs to be kind of worked with a concave pruner or a knob cutter, fresh cut paste over that. This one, maybe these aren't big enough yet for us to take this one back, but this one's definitely ready. So yeah, your apprentice has a little bit of work to do tomorrow to get these cleaned up. But he's an apprentice, he always has work to do.
When whoever made those cuts in the field originally, you just probably picked a straight section?
I'm guessing Randy made those cuts and it was just cut, try and make it smaller, let it respond. That would be my guess. I don't think there was too much thought put into it, if I was going to bet.
Is it pretty much similar to the flush cut callus approach that you're talking about, just
Similar thing. We would cut it down to where we see green, make a small concavity to account for the mass of that scar tissue, put cut paste over the entire thing so that we don't get any water penetration, and so we get healing power all the way across. We wait a year, maybe a year and a half or 2 years to get that about a third of the way healed over, halfway healed over. Once we notice that callus starting to stall out, you can take I like to use a dental pick I buy off eBay, or if anyone's a dentist in the club, I'm sure they loved your spare tools. But take a little pick. I only need 1 millimeter of green. One mistake people make is they take a knife and they cut off all the callus that they just spent the last 2 years kind of healing over. So don't do that. You only need just a little millimeter of green all the way around the perimeter of where that stopped. Fresh cut paste over the entire thing, and then that really jump starts it like a car that's had its battery died to get it healing over again. On a wound that size, you probably re-agitate it once or twice. On a wound this size, maybe 2 or 3 times, something like that. So, but with like a year of time kind of space in between. But if you do that, if you re-agitate this is a wound that's healable within 5 years, and you never know this was here. So. All right. It's quiet. Is Todd bending a really heavy branch over there?
No, here, I'll talk. All the heavy stuff's done. So here, I'm just... Here. So these are all long. I didn't do any of the fine wiring yet, but so what I'm going to do is I'm going to go through now and start, like here we have a whole whirl of branches down here. So what I did is I cut out a lot of them, and I left some of them that are that are like turgid and not the, where are they? There's some, like here. See where this is like, it's all just juvenile. It's all like little stuff like that. I've cut all those out, cutting out some big branches, but then like all this will get wired out. This will get wired out. But when I'm looking here, I'll move these up just for a second so you can see. On the bottom here, there's a whirl of branches. So I made selections there. These branches here, there's branches here, and there's branches here. So on all these sections, I'm going to make different layers. Okay, and so then when we're looking like from the front, from here, maybe some of these get pulled in, or maybe this gets pulled in, and then, I don't know, maybe we use some of these branches to get pushed out. These will come into here. So one thing too I was noticing when I started doing this was this branch was up over here. And so one thing you have to pay attention to is when I dropped that down, all the branches were like this. So now they're all upside down. So then while I'm putting the wire on, I'm adjusting them so now they're right side up. And then what I'll do is like this is kind of on the ground, so I'll take growing down. And then if I can get this with one piece of wire, then all I can do, or what I get to do, is come in and you can kind of just do directional pruning on some of these for length. And like this little piece here, I know it's hard to see, but there's a little piece growing down from here, but on the top, these are all growing up. So I'm going to come in here and I'll take that out, right? So you can, on these, you don't have to wire everything if they're sitting in a nice location, but can you just directionally prune? And maybe this is a little long, so I'll take this out. Here, right? So then just by pruning, now you have like a nice little, maybe this is hanging down a little too much. But you have a nice little pad just like that, okay? But that's what I'm doing now is I'm starting to do secondaries because on here, this is all the tertiary branches, all of these. Like I won't get to it tonight, but all these I'll wire. I'll wire all these. And then with here, instead of having like one pad, when you're doing juniper branches, it's like maybe there's some, let me move this. There's some of these shorter interior branches and there's these longer exterior. So these will be some of the longer branches here. This will be out here. for length, and then these smaller branches, they'll be kicked up here for body, right? So instead of having just a flat pad, you'll have a nice full pad. So that's kind of where I'm at. Right now, I'm just doing secondaries. Wiring this, I'm just leaving these long for now. When I go in, oh, so one thing too, like we moved this whole thing down, but then look at this. Like that's all exposed and that's just a line. So it's like, well, how do you cover that up? So there's a branch right here and there's some branches here. So actually what I'm gonna do here is I'm gonna take some of these and instead of pulling them out and down into here, I'm gonna take some of these branches and I'm gonna actually pull them back, which will then cover this up and give some foliage in here. So you don't have like all these bare spots. So that was one thing when I was at Mirai and I was working on a juniper and I laid this out and like there was a bald spot and he's like, well, what about that? It's like, oh, it'll grow in. And he's like, you can't settle for that. So when I'm seeing stuff like this, it's like, okay, and that was a really great lesson because now it's like you have this big empty spot. It's like, well, we got branches here. And so let's, instead of pulling them this way, we're actually going to push them back, which will then fill in and then we'll have nice foliage all over the place. So it's like, there's not always a solution, but there's a solution, you know, for stuff like that. You just have to kind of figure out what you can move into there, or maybe there's something that has to grow out, but we have the foliage. I gotta protect the apex here. From here that we can fill some of this in with, okay? So that's what I'm gonna be doing is I'm gonna be doing the secondary branches and I'll lay that out and then sometime this week I'll have to finish this at home, so. You could always like finish it and you just cut the crap out of the whole thing and then you have nothing left, but I don't know, I'm not gonna do that. It took too much to get that branch to move to massacre it.
With that big of a bend, you sometimes see some changes in foliage, like this one to die off or things like that, or?
Will what die off?
When you do that more aggressive of a bend,
Yeah.
sometimes, like, hey, we make that line fade a little bit here and this part died off.
Right.
For that. Do you expect anything here, or you?
So usually, I will try to keep, like on Andrew's tree, he cut off a lot of the foliage. Here I'm cutting a lot off, but I'm gonna try to keep as much as I can. So I'm gonna keep a lot of it. A lot of that's gonna be weak, and a lot of that, like it will shed some of that, but I'm still gonna keep it and let the tree make that choice. But yeah, always with juniper, with Rocky Mountain junipers, they're just, your touch has to be so light, you know, that you always get, I always get like little branches here or there, little twigs or something that dies. But yeah, it's, I don't know. So I was in Brooklyn. I was at Mirai actually. And I was wiring a Sierra juniper, which are really aggressive. And so even on this really light foliage, Ryan was like, you can't use 16 gauge. Or you can't use 18, you have to use 16. So it's like this teeny foliage with 16 that you're wiring because it'll grow and the 18, it won't even hold it anymore. So I was wiring Sierras with a thicker wire. And so that helped get my touch light and it helped out in the long run because then I went to the Brooklyn Club and I was doing a demo on a Douglas fir and the lightest gauge wire they had there was 12. So then I'm wiring these really fine branches with 12 gauge wire. But because of wiring a Sierra, the new foliage was 16, it helped with my touch, you know, I don't know if I'm, so.
Speaking of touch, when you're making that big bend, are you feeling anything in it, or you're hoping not to feel any feedback?
Well, I mean, I am always feeling, and yes, I'm hoping I don't feel anything. So the whole time, yeah, someone else asked this, the whole time we were bending this, so when I was doing it, I was supporting right in here, you know, and then I'm pushing kind of out as far as I could get on this. And so I'm pushing this wire, this 4 gauge, into the branch, and I'm pushing down. So, but the whole time we were doing it, there was tension. I mean, it wasn't at a point where I thought it was going to break, but it's like, I mean, if you feel this, like we could play a song on that, right? There's a lot of tension here, but it didn't like give, or it didn't loosen up. And so a lot of times when you're moving a big branch and you're feeling, and all of a sudden it's like, oh, it became easy, a little easier. It's like something tore, whether it's catastrophic or not, but it's something tore, So then so usually at a point like that, I'll stop. I'll sometimes like go in here and see if I can feel where there's like a crevice or something. And then I'm always like looking around here, trying to see, did something tear? Did something separate? So.
Are you going until you start to feel that, or you get into the place where you want it? But you don't
So, yeah, I mean, both happen sometimes. So on this one, I went to where I was happy. And it's like, there's probably more in there, but I'm happy where it's at, so I'm just going to stop. And then when we were setting this and adjusting this a little, it's like, I want more. So then I just went. But sometimes, like you push and you're getting a lot of resistance, so then you stop. And sometimes I'll just sit there for a few minutes and let the cambium stretch a little, and then just sit and then go back and push it again, so. Yeah, but usually with this, since this is wet, and the wet raffia will loosen up once it dries. So if you're doing a move like this, there's really not like, oh, I'll do it tomorrow. It's like you have to do it now, or else the holding power of this you're gonna lose that. So.
You ever trim the dead wood, or do you just always keep the dead wood?
Do I trim it?
Yeah, do you ever trim it?
I mean, there are times. All right, so let's look at that. So right now, if this is our front, I have to be careful. And we have all this wood going this way. This kind of comes back, right? But all the dead wood's kind of going that way. And we have this front, and this is kind of coming like right at you. So it's like, is it better if this is shortened? Or is it better where it is?
It's more wild with it, but if you trim it, then it's more directional. It's going counter to the direction. There you go. Now we get more movement.
So here, we're just going to take that out. So that's the thing. On some trees, like there's some junipers where maybe this is really, like it's smooth, and so that could be an instance where some people go in and carve it out, or pull the like the wood grains out and stuff. This tree's probably, I don't know, 250 years old. So this deadwood is old. This is old. And so like all the cracking and fissures and everything that's here, it's like I'm not gonna touch this at all. So I have a hard time even doing that, because I just usually, for the most part, I'll leave the deadwood there. Except there are instances where like there's just too much, and then you have to like simplify. But look at this in the grains here versus, like this right here. Or this right here. See how young these are versus this here, right? So that could be, if this like was really long, or even maybe this gets distracted, and maybe it's like, well, I want this to be the tallest point. So then you could come in here and like break this off, so maybe this is a shorter piece, So you can do that, but I don't know. I don't manipulate deadwood too much. So there's a guy, Andre, starts with a B, in Italy. What's that guy's name? Where's Graham? What is it? Yeah, do you know him? Andre, he's like Italian, and he does really good wood carving.
I know.
Yeah. Anyway, that guy's phenomenal. But he'll sit there on a pine, and he has these little tools, and it'll get in there and it'll like pull one grain out and pull one grain out and one grain, you know, and it's like, but his finished product, and then he sandblasts it and stuff like that. But when it's finished, it's spectacular. It's spectacular. So.
Does the guy wire extension create like a wire effect on the dead wood, or can you just kind of carve it out if it does?
It will probably, like here and here, probably leave a black mark. But then the next time I clean this, like once that comes off, I clean it, you know, scrub it with a brush, and then paint it with lime sulfur, it'll be gone. So, yeah. Yeah, any other questions on that whole thing? You just have to try it. That's my theory. It's like, I mean, that scared me, you know? So it's like, I understand, but at the same time, it's like, if you don't try it, you're not gonna figure out how to do it, so.
You cut that perfectly in half? Like you just took out half of the branch?
I wanted a half, and I got maybe 40%, so then I went back and then took out another 10% or so. But okay, so that's another thing. I debated, when I was doing that, do you take the top out or do you take the bottom out? Okay, and so I took the bottom for two reasons. One, because that's where all the compression is. But I have on some, like pine trees, I've done this, where I needed to bend a branch, but the whole top was dead. And so I couldn't do like a wedge cut on the bottom because that's what was alive. And so I took actually the dead wood out, cut the dead wood, and then bent it from there. So, but also, on the bottom of this branch, there was not a lot of foliage that was maybe getting fed from the bottom. All the foliage is on top. So that was another reason why I was looking at where's the foliage located. The majority of it is on the top, which means I'm going to try to leave as much of this top untouched as possible. So I'm just going to take the bottom out.
Do you think about that when you're doing deadwood creation in general and trying to find like a line from the base up to where the branches go and avoid?
Like making deadwood?
Yeah.
I mean, so I always look at it depending on like where the tree is sitting or what's the angle and where's the deadwood. It's like, is it a big chunk of deadwood that's kind of up? And then over time, like is water going to sit in there and rot it out? So does it look like that? Different species like limbers, you know, where they hollow out from like the middle out. So, I mean, a lot of it depends on species and then like angles and what, I don't know, what's the story, you know, that you're trying to convey and does it make sense? One thing when I was looking at angles on this too, was I actually took this tree, I had it flipped like 180 this way. So then this was where this was, right? So then this was here, this was all up. And so I looked at that. But to me, that the thing, this got really straight, which I didn't like, but the thing that was like a glaring reason not to do that was when you're up in the mountains and you see these trees and they've fallen over, where's the live portion of the tree? Or you go to Windy Ridge or wherever and there's all the bristle cones that are blown in one direction. It's like, where's the live portion of the tree? It's on the bottom. It's not on the top. And so if I took this and flipped it this way, the entire bottom is dead, but the live vein is right on top, which is not how that's going to be in nature. It's going to be the bottom's protected, and that's going to be alive. So that was another reason, like, and it worked out better for both cases, but that was another reason why it's like, I can't go this way, I have to go this way. So.
All right, so just got done with this horn beam over here. Again, there's things that might be subject to change, but from where it was to where it is now, I think we can see a little bit of a path to a final product. This tree, to get it into like something like a Pacific Bonsai Expo, is probably on a 7 to 12 year track in terms of its development. So this was its big first initial styling. It's possible that in the future, we might reassess this and say, this is just feeling too big. I don't know if that's the case yet, but I know enough to know that that's something that I'll consider 3 years from now after I look at this down the road. But we have a nice silhouette kind of established. We did the best with the branches that we could to kind of get things going in the right direction. With all the pruning that we did, we're going to get a lot of response, and so the next time this gets worked on, obviously the wire is going to come off in about 4-ish weeks. Whenever Todd's alarm on the phone goes off, the wire comes off. And then probably for the rest of the growing season, it's just left to grow. Todd and his apprentice are just going to water this. In the fall, we're going to have a lot more response on here from all the pruning that we did. So at that point in time, all the branches that we wired should be set, but if it could potentially go under a second wiring this year. To see if we can add anything. We have, I'd love to fill in something in this back area here that I didn't have any sprouts to do today, but if something sprout after all this cutting, that would be amazing. It would be great to fill out this area over here. So pending the response that we get, some of that can be wired and shaped a little bit more. But then mostly everything that has a wire on it really just needs to grow for a little bit. And so next year, this probably just needs to rip. It needs to look like it did kind of when we started this, so that all these things that we wire can get a little bit of momentum and thickness and caliper kind of developed into the branching. So that's what the next kind of couple years look like on this. And then probably year 3 or so, year 4, it's going to start feeling kind of big. That's where we might come in and say, this branch is a little bit long, this one's a little bit long. Those get kind of cut back and reduced. But I won't give you past that. That's kind of the next 3 years of chess moves on building a deciduous tree like this hornbeam. Does anyone have any questions about what we did on this today, kind of setting it up? Yeah.
Yeah, so you put nice movement in the branches. Did you mimic some sort of environmental influence like we do with conifers, like snow or wind, or what guided you towards interesting?
Yeah, so nothing directly. I wasn't trying to tell a story or anything like that. Mostly just take a branch that's straight, get some movement into it, flare things out nicely so that when you look at it radially, if you looked at it from the top down, everything's kind of spreading out evenly. And a lot of the branches, we kind of need deciduous branches. In nature, they have much more of an upright kind of habit. That doesn't necessarily translate very well to bonsai. They need to be slightly more horizontal. They don't need to be perfectly horizontal, but they need to be slightly more horizontal because anytime you have a branch that's growing up, it's going to get way too strong. That's where you get big leaves, big internodes, and really coarse growth. The second you take a branch that's growing really strong and coarse and vigorous, and you bend it down, that's when the branch starts to get bonsai quality growth with small leaves, small internodes, and it starts to kind of round out and fill out a design. So that's one kind of sacrifice that we make in branch placement from nature is we exaggerate them a little bit more horizontally on most deciduous bonsai. If you go to something like the Kokofu show in Japan, pretty much every deciduous tree, the primary secondary branches are going to be more horizontal than they are vertical. And then the way that we compensate for that is that in like the final image of the tree, all the twigs, the smallest stuff, the stuff that's smaller than a small piece of wire, that's the stuff that's kind of upwards. The primary branches are mostly kind of outwards. So that's what I was doing, trying to get things nicely oriented, making sure I didn't have any big major lines that were crossing with each other, and just give them a little bit of movement in the branching. So kind of all those things together. Other questions? Yeah.
Yeah, so Todd was talking about how, with junipers, we flip the foliage upright, and, other conifers do that. Are we as concerned about that with deciduous when we're doing it in a style?
Yeah, good question. Not necessarily, unless like this branch down here, I want to get thicker, so I might just put the end up. But yeah, not necessarily. In fact, oftentimes when you're doing black pine work, especially on younger trees, you don't want the needles tipped up because maybe the tree has too much energy. You point the needles down because the new candles will then kind of regrow up. So same with deciduous. On something this vigorous, the ends don't need to be pointed up because the tree's already got plenty of vigor to it.
Also, like the rotation, it's like we were kind of the process today, and I wasn't paying attention to were they upright or not.
No. The phototropism will grow the new buds up regardless. So we can mostly have things pointed down. And we're also not developing kind of fine foliar pads with these. The regrowth is what's going to make it look kind of spicy versus over there, you know, it's just going to look floppy unless we put them up. So you kind of have to do it for cleanliness there in a way that we don't here.
Is there any, like sunburn concern for the bottom sides of the leaves?
Yeah, so after we do a big working on a deciduous tree like this, it can't go back out in the full sun. Todd has shade cloth, so this can go right back under 50% or greater shade cloth. And be just fine under there. That's where it would go in my garden, 50% shade cloth. If you don't have that, just get it somewhere in the shade for a week or two and then slowly put it back towards like morning sun, afternoon shade. So, but yes, you can, any of these leaves that were kind of on the interior that were not getting light can fry if they're going back into the direct sun. And then the trunk can actually get sun damage as well if it wasn't used to the direct sunlight. So yeah, it needs some protection for light for aftercare. Other questions on this one? Yeah.
At what point do you think about repotting this? What stage of development would you kind of pot selection? Or are you thinking about pots now?
Todd and his apprentice can get this in a pot next spring. So this is something that can happen kind of right away. They're up for a big adventure, so get a nice sharp reciprocating saw blade. Use the reciprocating saw that plugs into the wall, not the battery, because the battery one will wear out. Yeah, this should be repotted this coming spring. It can go into a bonsai pot, probably just a little bit wider than the size of this here. And he's probably going to be able to get it into something about that deep, would be my guess. But it'll be an adventure because these were grown in the field. It's not going to have a great nabari. That's a sacrifice that we tend to make with field-grown material. And one of maybe the biggest reasons why field growing isn't always the best. Or if you do want to do any growing in the ground or accelerated growing, get a good nabari before you amplify it, which these probably did not have. So, a lot of the Telpiron maples did have those. So if you got a Japanese maple or a trident maple, those were growing over what they call a geodisc, like a flat nursery fabric disc. And those actually have fantastic nabaris, but they didn't do that with the hornbeams for some reason early on. I wish they did, but these aren't. The best part of the tree is not below the soil. It's
when I repotted these before, start at the top, work down, but any fine roots that I found at the top, I left, and then started from the bottom and worked my way up. And the bottom on some of these, there's just huge roots that are all fused together. And I just had to save as many fine roots at the top, and maybe like I cut, like this far down from where the top of the roots are, and I just sawzawed it across, and the tree did fine. But yeah, all of these they're sketchy repots. So
yeah. Field-grown trees are a gift and a curse for deciduous bonsai. The gift is you get all this bulk right now for low effort. The curse is there's a lot of defaults built into these trees, as we had to cut several off today. So it's not as sexy of a thing as it might kind of seem at first. As someone who has spent the last 6 years correcting a lot of those things on about 80 of these trees, it's been an adventure to kind of get that roughness kind of worked out of them. If you come to my garden now, I probably had like I said, 80 of these in 2021 when I built my garden. And now they're all starting to look like bonsai, but it's been a lot of years of wound healing and chopping and all that to kind of get that roughness kind of built out of them. So I don't know if I would have actually just started at that time with younger material, I could have probably grown it up without having all those issues kind of built in. So it might not save as much time as we tend to think. But we have a shortage of material. We got to work with what we have, and this is a great way to work with a piece of field-grown material. I'm going to say one final thing before I hand it over to Todd. And before I do that, Lydia, what's your question?
For both of you, I know sometimes demos can be a little bit aggressive. If you were working on these trees in your garden, this is what you did tonight, what you would have done.
This is exactly what I would have done at home.
Yeah, I'm the same. If I was really worried about getting this tree done, I don't know. So I have done this a couple times, once in Texas and once in California, where I was given a California juniper that Ben Oki collected, and I had 2 hours to do the design. It's like, I'm not going to do it. So all I did was set structure, and then I was there for another week. So then every night for a couple hours after I worked during the day, I went to finish that tree. So Yeah, if I was somewhere else, if I was in my workshop, this is exactly what I would do. If I was in Oregon or wherever doing classes, if I had like a couple days extra, then I would go through and wire the tree. But I don't know, if I doing work like this and then just like massacring the tree just to get a finished result it feels kind of sacrilegious to me. So you just have to respect the material. But yeah, this is exactly what I would do at home. So.
All right. I'm going to say something that Todd can't say, but I'm a traveling bonsai professional. I'm a board member of the Bonsai Society of Portland. You guys are so lucky to have Todd here in your backyard. Please take advantage of that, because I go to so many clubs around the country that don't have a bonsai professional who live there. And I know it's one of the hardest things about being a bonsai professional in a local good club environment is it's very hard to be a prophet in your own backyard. Bjorn was almost never hired by the Bonsai Society of Nashville. To do any programming. You guys should be hiring Todd like 3 times a year for programs. You don't have to fly someone like me in to do all these things. You have someone great here locally. So if you're on the board of directors, please take advantage of him. There's so many clubs around the country that are so jealous of the opportunity of you having him here. And for all of you who aren't on the board but just want to learn and get better at bonsai, one of the best ways to do that is to go find someone who knows a lot and go spend some time in their garden with classes, beg him to volunteer, just get your hands on as many good trees as possible. You guys are really, really lucky to have Todd here in your backyard. That being said, if you're ever passing through Portland, Oregon, you're more than welcome to visit. My garden is called Rakuyo Bonsai. If I'm here doing something like this, my father, Jeffrey, who loves bonsai, is there giving a tour. I think he gave a tour to a few people today. So you're always welcome to come by and visit and see some deciduous trees.
Yeah.
Todd and I will both be at the Pacific Bonsai Expo later or early next year, February 5, 6, 7, 2027. That's a great place to get some material. I'll have about 70 deciduous trees for sale with me. I'm sure Todd's going to bring a lot of fun stuff. But definitely go to his house if you're looking for great material, because he's done a lot of the hard work pre-selecting good material for you. So please take advantage of him. You guys have a really great local resource.
Thanks,
and
Andrew.
Please use it. So,
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody, for having me. That's my time for tonight.
No, thanks. All right.
That it? Any questions before we wrap up?
You want to summarize anything, Todd?
No, I will. So I'm having a tree sale this coming weekend, so I have to finish photographing things, and then as soon as I'm done photographing and getting that all ready, I'll finish this tree and I'll send it to Lydia, and I'll shoot it and everything. So yeah.
Thanks, that was fantastic.
Yeah, good. Thank you.
It was just really helpful to see the whole progression.